All right, welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon reviews. 4 reviews up this week. The first of which is Rendering Ranger R Squared Rewind. So, I suppose a bit of a history lesson is needed here, because Rendering Ranger does hail from ye olden times, as in it is a 16-bit game. Now, try to guess which system this appeared on, just from its graphics. You might not be able to guess it right away, because I know what it looks like, but it's not that.
I was gonna say PC Engine.
No. I said 16-bit. PC Engine's like 8, 16 bits, depending on your level of semantics.
Fair.
The answer I was looking for is it looks like an Amiga game.
Oh, okay.
Fair enough. I never had any actual play time with an Amiga, so I wouldn't exactly know how they work.
I knew that Amiga existed, but couldn't have told you how many bits it was to within the nearest two powers of 2.
Yeah. Also, Atari ST, I suppose, one of the 16-bit computers, and there's a reason for that. But in actuality, this is a Super Nintendo game.
You can tell from the slowdown.
He's not wrong, though.
No, he's not. But I bring up the Amiga because that's where the lineage comes from. Because this game was developed by Manfred Trinas, creator of the Turrican series. Now, if you don't know the Turrican games, rather beloved Commodore 64, Amiga, a whole bunch of systems, including the Super Nintendo and Genesis. More the Genesis, mainly because Super Turrican is a butchered port of Mega Turrican. The point is, that is a family of action platforming games of which this resembles.
As you can tell from the action and the platforming.
Yes. But there's more here than what's going on. Because this is not just an action platformer, how they describe it. I would not describe it as that. This is more of a side-scrolling run and gun. There's the nominal amount of platforming. Contra's more of a platformer than this thing. And Contra's considered to be one of the seminal run and guns ever created. But it's not just a platformer.
It isn't not a run and gun just because sometimes you have to jump over holes.
Right. The point is, it's not just that. Because about level 3, it will turn into a shmup.
Hell of a jump.
Yeah, so it is explained in story, in universe, by your guy here, Double R. That is literally his name, a special forces soldier who must defend the Earth from a devastating alien invasion. I suppose that's all you need for a game like
rendering?
This. This is a good question.
Aside from possibly insufficient numbers of frames per second.
The answer is ACM. Because, this game came out in 1995. So we're post-Donkey Kong Country. Which means we're in the fucking era of pre-rendered sprites. Now, I will say, this is, I think, the best-looking one of those I have ever seen, if only because it keeps that goddamn plastic look to a minimum.
Yeah, honestly, if you told me, if you didn't tell me these were pre-rendered, I thought they were drawn.
Yeah, like I said, it's a credit to the artistic talent on display here that they managed to hide that so well. that's stuff that, even the artists of like Rare and Squaresoft couldn't do, because the Donkey Kong Country games and fucking Super Mario RPG had that plastic look for days. Like, anyway, so the term hidden gem gets thrown around a lot these days, and probably without understanding what a hidden gem is. I'm sure that can be tied into larger discussions about the meaninglessness of words and, the lack of media literacy or something like that. But no, this is the definition of a hidden gem, because when it came out, it was a Japan-only title. And it was only printed with a run of about 10,000 copies.
Fuck.
Yeah, so that's a fucking hidden gem right there. Because it was released in one territory at the end of a system's life, is of high quality, but didn't have a large print run. Therefore, this game is also really expensive to purchase on real hardware.
I would
So
imagine.
whatever. I do not know the price of Rendering Ranger, for the Super Famicom offhand. Like, I'd imagine it's going to be the hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, depending on your condition. I'm like, so
Possibly double or triple that depending on, in box or not.
yeah, I'm like, just a cursory glance at eBay, I'm seeing range from 600 to 6,000. Obviously, that's going to depend on condition and box, manual, condition of the box, etc., etc., etc. But we're not talking about the collector's market here. We are talking about the game itself, because it has been rescued from the collector heap by the tandem of Ziggurat and Limited Run, who have been featured on this program in various fashions in recent times. And, this is definitely a game that is, even, putting aside the whole every game should be preserved argument, in terms of quality, yeah, this is definitely something that deserved to be unearthed and released to the masses. Because, yeah, it's a really good, action platformer and shmup. Of course, the fusing of both genres together does mean it's a bit of jack of all trades, master of none. Like, this game isn't going to best Contra or R-Type 3 as the best shmup or run and gun on the Super Nintendo. But that does not diminish its overall quality or the unique things that this game is doing. And that is its weapon system. As you get 4 different weapons, like Petty here has the blue laser. I couldn't tell you exactly what the names are of these things. And you can power them up, and your special weapon, the bomb, is tied to whatever weapon you have selected. It actually takes about a good 2 levels to get everything powered up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you die, you lose the power of that weapon that you have selected. So if you have the plasma weapon, the green weapon selected, it'll go back to basics. But if you switch to the red shot, that'll still be fully powered up. It's an idea that Contra 3 had, in that you can carry like 2 weapons at once, and if you died, you lost one weapon, but you still retain the other one. it's an expansion off of that. And I am pleased to say that it being a Super Nintendo game, it took advantage of the Super Nintendo platform, the Super Nintendo controller, which means it's using all the face buttons and has the shoulder buttons in play. If you hit the left,
That's good.
The left bumper is aiming diagonally up, and the right bumper is aiming diagonally down, which is another thing that Contra 3 did.
Of note, you cannot do that while walking.
Yeah, which is something that you could do in Contra. Once again, that is a point in Contra's favor there.
Still, it's better to have that than to have to be walking to do it.
Right. Like I said,
it's pretty much the same way it is in Super Metroid, I believe.
Super Metroid, you can still walk around, I think.
You can walk, yes. No, I meant in terms of the
you can walk.
Aiming.
Yeah, you can walk. You can moonwalk in Super Metroid. As far as the shmup portion goes, it's pretty standard shmup fare. I'd say the most unique thing added is the turn button. I gotta admit, I don't like it.
You get to change your player color. That's it.
Yeah. Anyway, so on the shmup levels, you can actually turn your ship from right to left. You can actually change the orientation, which isn't something that you regularly do in shmups. Just in general.
Mm-hmm.
And playing through this, I can see why, because it's honestly kind of annoying. More detriment than benefit there. It's not a game killer or anything. But I won't lie, I enjoyed the action platformer sections more than the shmup sections. It's still good. It's just, even on the Super Nintendo, there were more shmups than there are, running guns.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, with the shmup levels, it is doing the R-type Gradius thing of having like the bits or options that enhance your weapons if you pick them up, and they will vanish if you die. And another reason why I'm thankful that this is a Super Nintendo game that I'm not sure if being released in Japan only had something to do with it or not. It doesn't play like a goddamn Amiga game. It doesn't play loose. It doesn't play slippery. The level design isn't sprawling. No. We're keeping it simple. We're keeping it tight. We're keeping it fluid. The game actually controls well and doesn't do things like up to jump because we're on a one-button controller. I understand their limitations, but I also really fucking hate them. So, I'm glad that this game plays like a Super Nintendo game that I would have played, in my youth, rather than an Amiga platform game. And also, I am aware that Super Nintendo and Genesis games could play like that as well. I hate them too. Okay. But what I'm saying here is the design and that ineffable game feel that some video game critics talk on and on about. It feels like a Super Nintendo game. It plays like a Super Nintendo game. And that's good in my books. Now as far as what I didn't like, that I haven't mentioned yet, I wouldn't recommend playing this game on hard mode, because that goes to it enables fake difficulty. I suppose I should quantify that. It makes the enemies, especially the bosses, more bullet spongy, which is one of my least favorite ways of, enacting difficulty.
Just giving you even more time where you have to do it without messing up.
Yes. And, here's the thing. The bosses are quite long. And, it doesn't do the shmup thing. If you take too long on a boss, it's going to fast forward you through it. Because time is money. So you're just stuck there until, you die or you kill the boss. And it can take a while. Like, there were a few bosses where I'm just like, are you dead yet? Are we still doing this? Level 6 comes to mind right away. Just kind of wanted that thing to die after a certain point, and just, okay, that part's dead, I gotta wait until the vulnerable part shows up, and it just becomes a tedious slog. Not the worst sin this game commits, and that is visual overflow. And I can point to a specific moment, the goddamn 4th level boss. Oh, that was a pile of bullshit and chips. Because this is another thing I've complained about before, though usually in conjunction with retro revival titles that decide that neon is a good choice for their aesthetic. Just, you have so much shit on screen that it's just, visual overload. I literally can't see where I am.
Yeah, it's particularly the overstimulating neon. Like, neon can be good, just not when it's all neon.
Yeah, and this game does that at certain points. The chief among them, the 4th boss. It's just, dear God, between the garish color scheme of that boss and all of the flying debris, I literally could not see my ship at points. And that is just, that is just a problem. It's not a deal breaker, especially with this modern version. Because you can see Petty Fan is making extensive use of, what is now pretty typical accoutrements to retro emulation. That is to say, you have save states, you have rewind. So if you're not good at this game, and you're probably not going to be at first glance, because it's not super brutal like Contra is. In fact, it kind of goes the other way in its design. Like if you see on the left-hand side, there's an energy bar. You have 5 hits, which is a lot more generous than any Contra game I could name. Like, at least any good Contra. Like, I'd say the biggest problem is the invincibility frames. I'm not sure they exist. Because there were points where, like, especially in the shmup levels, where I would get brutalized, losing 2 to 3 wedges at a time. Which is another design choice I don't like, especially in a game like this. But, these are all, at the end of the day, small gripes compared to what is enjoyable here. Like, if I were to give an overall kudos rating, this is a great game, but not an all-time classic. Like, Rendering Ranger certainly would earn its place among the hidden gems, cult classics, like alongside, say, Hagane or The Twisted Tales of Spike McFang or something like that. It's not going to be a game that's mentioned among the giants of the Super Nintendo. Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Super Mario World, any sort of game that defines the system, or, a game, especially an action game, that would come to mind first. Like, basically, you're not going to get a replacement for Contra 3 The Alien Wars from this. What you're going to get is a good supplement. So, take that at its value. And speaking of value, how much does this game cost? A mere $10.
That's not bad.
Yes.
Especially because the only way you could play it before would cost you thousands.
Yeah, I suppose I should also mention that there was a point that this game was supposed to come out in the West as under the title Targa. And you can actually see that version.
Yeah, let me quit out of this real quick, because I was going to show that off, but I got blindsided.
Game, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fun game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So
yep, and this is Targa.
Yeah, Targa. Now, I couldn't exactly tell you what's different.
They
other
changed
than
the player sprite.
Right. But I mean, like the level by level changes that they probably instituted.
Mm-hmm.
I think they also changed the beginning control scheme, because I remember that fucking with me when I selected this for a brief playthrough.
I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
Oh yes, they
Anyway.
did. X is now the spread shot, and B is the jump button. Oh, what in the fuck is this?
Yes. This is why I stopped playing very quickly, because I'm like, oh god, what is this?
War crimes are happening here. Jesus, no.
Yeah, you can adjust that.
I know you can, but oh god, no.
Yeah. Point is, both versions, which I suspect is the R squared in this new title, although that should really be like R times T, but we're not teaching actual algebra here.
At least not yet.
Indeed. Anyway, so for $10, this game is certainly worth your while. Like, it's not going to last you super long. Like, it's a game designed to be completed in a couple hours at best. It was always that kind of game. Or rather, it's a game with a pretty huge difficulty curve, and your means of traversing through the game back in the day was to, as they say, get good.
Yep.
You would just spend your time learning everything, the enemy patterns, the placement, and until you get to the end. That's how games were played in the 16-bit era, especially action games.
Mm-hmm.
As it is now, you don't have to play that way if you don't want to. Right. So I think I'm done with Rendering Ranger here. Is there anything you guys want to add to the mix?
I think I'm good.
All right, then.
Yeah, sorry, I had myself muted. Yeah, I haven't played it, but it looks pretty good.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, so yeah, that'll about do it for Rendering Ranger here. Be sure to tune in after the break, as Petty Fan will be reviewing Carry Onward.